I was like, why are you so obsessed with it?
Well, it's been a while, not since the last time I've been on the screen of this channel, but I have not sat down and reviewed a movie since The Drama, so I'm very excited to be reviewing today Obsession. Excited because, like, you know, it's been a while since I've reviewed a movie, and I love to review movies, but I've been particularly excited for this movie in general, because I guess I'll just get right into it, you know, with my reviews. I always love to give the context in which I go into the movies with, because I feel like that does inform, you know, like your overall opinions of the movie. So really what I have to say is, as far as that goes, is I am a big fan of Curry Barker's work. You know, notably, I, on my little fun and silly little award show that I do on my channel, his previous film, Milk and Cereal, was in the best screenplay category. I think I also put an honorable mention for best film of that year. I might have even did Curry Barker as like a leading actor nomination. So like overall, I really enjoy his work, and I'm very excited to see him like getting his flowers and having a major, you know, like big studio release movie. So that's the context that I am going in with. Also, I feel like I should add, you know, there is a lot of hype going into this movie, so there is that, but I generally try to, you know, drown out all that stuff, especially because movies love now to be like, it's the most scariest thing you've ever seen, and then it's not. So I try to shut all that out. I did not watch a trailer before I watched this. All I had seen was the teaser, and I'm glad I did that. That's all I have to say. So I really want to get into the thick of the review, but as always, and if you're new here, I usually do spoiler free, then spoiler section, then concluding thoughts, and you can find that in the timestamps below. Alright, so Obsession is about, after breaking the mysterious one Wish Willow to win his crush's heart, a hopeless romantic gets exactly what he asked for. However, he soon discovers that some desires come at dark and sinister prices. So this isn't necessarily like a type of story that we haven't heard of before, you know, like we have definitely heard of this type of thing before. But my first comment that I have to make on this movie is just the originality it brought. You know, it really took an idea that we are familiar with, you know, like somebody wishing for their crush's heart and then it goes awry, but he just did it in such an original and gripping way, which I guess goes into my other comment. One of my bullet points that I made was theater etiquette. This is how I can communicate to you how good I thought this movie was, because I'm going to really get into it, but I'm going to tell you off the bat, I thought this was a great movie, and one of the best showcases of how good this movie is. The theater that I was in honestly had really poor etiquette. To the right of me, I had people who like sat way too close to me for a completely empty movie theater, but whatever. And I also had like 2 rows in front of me, a full family who were like fully on their phones, and then the kids did eventually turn off their phones, but the mom was like still on the phone. Around like 20 minutes into this movie, those phones were down because the movie was just that gripping and that interesting that everybody was locked in. And additionally, the older women that were to the right of me, at one point I heard them say like, oh God, I think this is too much for me. So let that inform you on how good of a movie and theater experience this was. So jumping back into what I was saying though, I really think this is a truly original movie, you know, despite that type of idea being explored before. The way in which Curry explored it was just so original and different. There was a real unpredictability to the movie, and then even when it did do something kind of predictable, like not necessarily generic, but just like you could kind of like foresee it coming, it still happened in a way that was really compelling and had you like really gripped in the movie. Like he just really like he was writing, his pen was on fire when he was writing this. Okay,
I'm doing it.
So obviously I can dive a little bit more into these things in the spoiler section, if you've watched the movie, because if you have not watched the movie, do not watch the spoiler section, okay? Like, I really urge you to go watch this movie, A, because it's really good, but also, like, support Curry Barker. But my other comment is I really enjoyed the commentary that this movie had. I think that also adds to the originality, because other types of movies that explore that type of, like, my crush is obsessed with me, and, like, I would, I made a wrong wish. Don't explore this, which I'm trying to think of in what way I can share the themes without like spoiling too much of the movie. But we'll just say it gets into like codependency and consent and kind of, we'll say, I think a touch of misogyny as well. And it just, I don't know, the way he weaved that in was super fascinating to me, and really, like, you just, what I understood, what I liked about it is there's been a lot of conversation about like elevated horror, which I think he actually just made a comment on the concept of elevated horror. And what I found the most fascinating about the commentary in this movie was it was somehow like really easy to grasp what was being said without it being too overly like it wasn't acting like more than what it was. Like, it wasn't trying to act like some big profound thing. I think sometimes a lot of movies make that mistake, and he didn't do that, and it was really like, it just overall, like, everything that I've talked about so far, like, it's just so tight. Like, it just all works really well. Additionally, I always like to also get into like the more like filmmaking aspects of the movie, which, first of all, I have to say his directing was amazing. Like, there wasn't necessarily like a lot of like crazy dynamic shots or anything, but just the way in which he decided to film this and his director's vision really aided this movie. Like, there weren't necessarily complicated shots necessarily, like no like crazy like camera movements or anything, but they really, the way he decided to shoot things really elevated the story that was happening, because there were so many shots where it really grounds you into the perspective of the main character, and it allows the horror elements to really work, because a lot of the things that were being said about this movie was like how scary it was. And what I was intrigued by going in was like, in what way is this going to be scary? Because this type of storyline doesn't seem like it should be scary. It seems more like a movie where like the situation in the movie is horrifying, but like we as the audience are not necessarily scared. Like, I think there's different types of horror in that way. There's movies where the situation is horrifying, but we as the audience aren't necessarily scared, whereas in other movies, like, there is actual terror in the audience. He really managed to make this both a horrifying situation for the main character, but also us as well. There was some genuinely scary moments. This movie like freaked me out. Everybody in the theater was reacting. Like, it really had you like, it was like one of those movies where people in the theater were not afraid to like out loud be like, oh fuck, or like, oh god, like, it just, he was eating up, y'all. He was eating up. Furthermore, on like the more filmmaking elements, it's like the lighting and the sound were amazing. Specifically the lighting. When the movie first started, because I tried for the first time like writing actual notes in the movie theater, which I'm very surprised at how like good my penmanship was for writing in the dark. But the first thing that I wrote down was how dark it was, like the lighting. But that critique very quickly went away, because as the movie went on, I was like, wow, wait a minute. This lighting is great, because it is a little bit darker, but the depth he still is able to create with the darker lighting was really nice to look at. But maybe my favorite element of the movie was they did this trick with the lighting, where the crush, oh my god, what's her name? Shit, what is her name? I just watched this whole movie and I can't remember her name. Nikki, the crush, Nikki. There are several shots where the lighting makes her just kind of like a pure black silhouette, and it is so just visually cool to look at, but also, as I'll get into in the spoilers, what I think it's doing for the plot is really interesting. But it was so cool to look at. There's even a scene where they are doing the black silhouette thing, but just like the highlight of the light in her eyes is still visible, and it's really, really cool to look at. Also, the sound was amazing. Like, there's moments where it gets really, really big before it kind of like comes down. It just creates this really cool, horrifying effect. This is a great theater movie, not just because of what's happening on screen, but it's a very full-on immersive experience. Lastly, before I move into the spoiler section, I just want to comment on the acting. This movie is very well acted. I think everybody present is doing a good job. I think Michael Johnston in the lead does a great job of carrying the movie. He's able to really play like this little lovesick guy very well. He plays the horror elements well. But the star of the show, of this whole movie, is Inde Navarrette in the role as Nikki. Holy shit. If you ask me, this is an Oscar-worthy performance. Like, obviously, this is a like, first-time big big-time movie, director chair, may release horror movie. So, like, this is not going to get Oscar attention, maybe, with the way things have been turning out lately. But this is an Oscar-worthy performance. Like, she is really amazing in this role. Like, the way she slips in and out of these different moods that she has to play, and like, just it is really like a full throttle performance, and it still does have like nuances. Like, it is a 10 out of 10 performance. She really is the star of the movie. Like, it's amazing. So at this point, I am going to be discussing spoilers, and I urge you to go watch this movie. Do not listen to any of these spoilers without watching the movie, okay? This movie is worth your while. I also think you should support up-and-coming directors, so go watch this movie and come back, okay? You listen to the spoilers later. So now that I can expand a little bit more, I want to get back into the originality aspect. I think he was just able to avoid the generic, as I wrote down in my notes, this type of thing, like the wishing for your crush and it going wrong and them kind of becoming obsessive is nothing new. But where he makes it original is, first of all, the minute he snaps the one wish little bar like thing, she already like is on her porch instantly, already wanting to go home with him, and like instantly like starting to like be taken over and slip into it. That's very different, because normally like the trope here would be, everyone goes to sleep, they wake up the next morning, and like the wish comes into play and like things start unraveling. She is instantly turning into that, and is not maybe like full throttle at this point, but she's already pretty like under the spell. So I think that's extremely original. But he just avoids the generic throughout the whole movie. Like, it doesn't go the way these types of things normally go. And as well, there are a few moments in the movie where like something predictable is going to happen, but it's that case of predictable where it's not predictable because it's bad or generic writing. It's predictable because there is occasionally times where the audience should be like kind of keyed into what's happening, because it's almost like anticipation based horror, like we're waiting for the thing to happen. But he does this really great thing where it's it's coming, it's building up. I think the perfect example of this is when they're in the car and he's talking to the friend Sarah, I believe. We know that Nikki is going to come through that damn window and get Sarah and kill her, but he does a great job of like, it's kind of building, and then it transitions a little bit and they're like talking about her college or whatever, and your security is dropped because it's a bit jarring how they just switch into this like light playful talk. So it makes your senses come down, and then boom, it happens. So even when there is that moment of something kind of more like, I know that this is going to happen, he still does it in an effective way and a brutal way. That death did not hold back which that goes into my next point. I wrote in my notes, highs and lows. I think this movie does a great job of like building the kind of like tension and like and dropping it. And in some movies that can be against it because they need that tension needs to keep building. But I think he had a really great sense of knowing where, you know, like, okay, like this crazy thing is happening, and then we kind of need to alleviate before we go into the next thing. Because this to me, this movie isn't an all around super intense experience. Like, it's not going at 11 the whole time, but the intense moments are intense because, like I said, that sound design is huge, and like, so the moments are super like boom when they happen. So I'm glad he was like riding the waves and knew when to kind of like, okay, like let's draw it back in so we can kind of go back into another intense moment later. This movie is also an extremely good example of show me, don't tell me. There's a lot of things that are communicated to us without it being shoved down our throats, and also things that we're kind of thinking and then that gets confirmation, but it doesn't overdo it. What I mean by that is like the lore behind the one Wish Willow. It's never really fully explained, but through it just showing us things, we are able to kind of pick up on it. Or even when he's like on the phone call with them, it kind of confirms some things, but it's not in a way where like it's a information dump. And they also still kind of keep some things to themselves, just as like I kind of in the middle of the movie was like, I think she might be like possessed by a demon or something. Like I was having that thought where I was like, I don't think Nikki is Nikki, like this is somebody else. And that thought gets confirmed, but without, you know, another version of this movie, he would go back to the shop and some like witch or somebody would explain all this to him. That doesn't happen. It just this information gets relayed to us in other ways, and I think that's really good, strong writing. You need to show me, don't tell me. Also, this is just like more of a little fun thing, but it is, I guess, technically a spoiler. I love that in the beginning of the movie when they're at a bar, it says Barker Pub, and it's like a little nod to Curry Barker. I love that. So those are my thoughts, comments, opinions, and observations on Obsession. I'm really glad I decided to watch this like opening night. I've been looking forward to this for a while. I wanted to get my review out quickly, but I'm so glad because I want to watch it again. I am gonna go for a second watch on $5 Tuesday next week because it's just that good, and I want to support Curry. He makes some great stuff. But yeah, I think this is a great movie. I'm not like hyping it up just because I like him and his work and I want the movie to do well. Like, I really do genuinely think this is a great movie. I walked out and my first thought was, this is the best theater experience I've had this year so far. It's a great theater movie, but it's a great theater movie because it's a great movie in general. The writing is really tight. It's an original concept. It's all the filmmaking aspects are done extremely well, and the acting performances, specifically from Miss Inde. I tried to research her name, but there was like I couldn't find an interview of her saying her name. So I'm sorry if I mispronounced, but she did an amazing job in this movie. I'm really excited to see what else Curry has to come. He's got a couple new projects on, coming down the conveyor belt, one of which being Texas Chainsaw Massacre, so I definitely sat for that. But yeah, this is a great movie. If you're at all interested, I urge you to go watch this in the theaters. And also, I just want to say, Curry totally knows who I am and is going to watch this video. So I just want to say, all jokes aside, that I'm really proud of him. I followed his work for a while, and I'm glad to see he's having this success. And his movie got picked up by Focus Features, so it's getting, a theatrical run. And as somebody else who is a small filmmaker operating out of YouTube, it's really nice to see other people like him, as well as Kane Parsons' Backrooms is coming out in 2 weeks. It's really nice to see these people finding the success, because obviously I'm supporting it and I'm supporting them, not just for that reason. Like, I think they make great work on top of that, but it's also just kind of inspiring, I guess, and it gives me some hope that I'm not just out here blindly throwing stuff out into the void on my channel and hoping it catches. It's nice to see that it can really genuinely turn into something. So you know, who knows? Maybe in 2, 3, 4 years I'll be the next one in line. I only have my one film glimmer out there right now. My other stuff is more like performance art based. But anyways, I don't want to go too much on about myself because this is not about me. This is about them. I just wanted to say that this, you know, it's nice to see and it gives me some little hope. But that's all for now. Stay tuned next week for the return of my video essay series. And don't forget, at the end of the month, May 29th, my performance art film, Invisible Ink, is coming out. I'm also just going to say it because apparently the algorithm likes it better. So I'm just going to say, if you enjoyed this, like, comment, and subscribe. My whole channel's me reviewing movies, talking about movies, putting out my own movies. So if you like this, maybe you'll like more. But as for now, I will see you in the next one.